Sorry?
So we are on that 38, chapter 13, verse 12. So all these different values that we talked about, one major difference is, when you go for self-help or whatever, then these values become an end in themselves. For Vedanta, they are means to an end, right? You need all of this to finally understand your reality. You need to align at this level in order to understand the bigger picture about yourself. And that is what Anadimat Param Brahma. So that Brahman which is you, na sat na asat tat uchyate. Okay? So your nature is what the Atma is Brahman. This is something which is the ultimate thing, equation that you have to understand. Okay? So we've seen the fact that how we make a mistake about who we are with reference to three things. Okay? One is what? The physical body. We mix up our nature with physical body. The second is this, in Sanskrit is called Sthula Sharira. Okay? The second level of mistake we make is we mistake I for Sukshma Sharira. Sukshma Sharira is what? All your subtle functions in the body, including the mind. Okay? Now there are others who say that I'm distinct from the physical body and subtle body, but they identify with the causal body. The causal body is what? All your karmas. So you are also distinct from what? The causal body. If you understand the fact that I am distinct from Sukshma, Sthula and Karana Sharira, then who are you? You are Chit Swarupa. You are that awareness which is distinct from all three. And where do you put the limit to that awareness? There is no limit to that awareness. Okay? So therefore, one thing I just want to go quickly over it because you must keep in mind what is the nature of Atma. The nature of Atma is, how do you arrive at the fact that this awareness is not many but only one? What is the logic that we use to make you see the fact that this awareness are not many but one? The logic is that if I were to make a claim that my awareness is different from your awareness, I have to give some attribute to my awareness to say that my awareness is pink and your awareness is blue, for example. Okay? Only then I can say there are two different things. If I have taken out the physical body as I, physical body has many different attributes. You can be fair, I can be dark, you can be tall, I can be short. So that means we establish the fact that there are two physical bodies because they have different attributes. Okay? Now minds are many because what? You can be highly compassionate, I may not be. You can be very good at math, I may not be. So these are all the different attributes. So I can say your mind is different from mine. Okay? How can we say that the causal bodies are different? Because all the karmas which I may have done may not be the karmas that you have done. Okay? So therefore, all these bodies are many and they all have different characteristics. But if all this is not I and I am awareness, what attribute would I give to awareness to say my awareness is this and your awareness is that? You have nothing left anymore. Because all the attributes belong to what? Physical, subtle and causal bodies. The awareness has no attributes. The awareness, which is the observer of all these different changes which are taking place at Sthula level, Sukshma level and at causal level, is what the observer never takes on the attribute. And if the observer does not take on the attribute, does the observer have any intrinsic attribute? No. It's just awareness. Okay. Therefore, you can say, I have no, when Shastra tells me that there is only one awareness, one chit, I have no logical way to refute what Shastra is saying. Because if I were to refute what Shastra is saying, I have to show that my awareness is this character and your awareness is that character. But no attributes can be given to awareness, so therefore we say awareness is one. Then we give an example of what space. We give an example of this space seems to be confined to what? Bottle. But what is the reality? There is one undivided space, right? The bottle does not break the space into inside and outside space. The reality is there is one undivided space in which the bottle moves. And when the bottle moves, the space, is there any designated space? When I move the bottle from here to here, does the space move?
No.
Space does not move, the bottle moves in space. Right? It's not like there is a designated space here which moves when I move from here to here. What happens? This is physics, right? What happens is, space doesn't move, everything moves in space. So this so-called designated one, which is not like a real designated, what will happen? This will become now bottle space. You understand what I am trying to say? What was this bottle space here? When I move the bottle here, what becomes bottle space? That becomes bottle space. Okay? So therefore, there is no division. So therefore, this awareness is something which has no location. And the bodies move in this awareness, awareness doesn't move. This is
awareness.
so that awareness is there is only one thing which is self-evident to you. Because everything that we have known so far is by objectifying. Now that means our whole orientation is what? I have to see it and only then it is. There is only one thing which is given to us not as an object but as self-evident. Okay? Awareness, chit, is swataha siddha. It doesn't require objectification. Because if you were to objectify awareness, who would be the person who would objectify? It will become an object. When it becomes an object, it will become what? A limited thing within time and space. So that means when Shastra tells you that this body is something which is what you're aware of, it undergoes change. In order for you to know the changes, you have to be there or not. You are there. You have a mind and mind constantly undergoes change, and you have to be there to know the coming and going of a thought. You have senses and the senses are constantly in a flux. Their capacities undergo change. Okay? But you have to be that constant presence because of which all the changing things are known to you. So that is, where is it? It is self-evident, that awareness. Now the mistake that we make is, it is so evident, and because it has as though connection with given body, mind, sense complex, we miss the presence of awareness and we attribute that awareness to what? The body, mind and senses. So what the scriptures do is make us see something which is there, which is in Mundaka Upanishad, it says, Pratibodha Vidhitam Matham. It's there in everything is variable. There is one invariable presence which we miss. And that is that invariable presence which is what you are. If in order to understand that invariable presence, like everything else, if you try to objectify, then what? You go wrong. because it's only one thing which is not an object but it is the subject. It's given to you as I, the subject, which is not available for objectification. But if it is not available for objectification, everything else what you objectify, how will you ever know it without objectifying? You will know it because it is the presence which is always available to you. Swataha Siddha, self-evident. Self-evident I. Now the problem is that self-evident I gets mixed up with objects. So what does Shastra do? Makes you see those objects are variable, they are different, they have characteristics, but this awareness is free from all characteristics. Okay? Now that awareness, now one thing is very important, that awareness now I have taken out the location from this awareness, and I said it is all pervasive awareness in which all these bodies move. Okay. Now the question is, what is the relationship of awareness with all the different objects? What is the relationship between awareness and objects? Are they two totally independent realities? One thing is awareness and other is what all the different bodies which what seem to be.
All the objects are dependent here.
Dependent.
Excellent. So therefore, Shastra goes and tells me, this is what, na sat, na asat. Okay? So that means this awareness and the world, the relationship between the awareness and the world is that of Satyam and Mithya. That's a huge thing. Okay? That's why there is the vision of oneness. Because all the objects, as we saw earlier, they have, as Nirmala says, they have a dependent reality. So this object which I think is a very tangible thing, it is what forms within forms, within forms, within forms. So this table is wood, the wood is atoms, the atoms are particles. Ultimately, even the quantum physics will say that there is nothing which is so tangible about this object that seems to us which is so tangible. Right? So that means it ultimately resolves into a concept. There is no object. Okay? Now then, what Shastra points out is, if everything collapses, just as this body, this table collapses into a concept, everything else in this universe also equally, even though it's a far out star, a huge star, it's the same story. Atoms, particles, concept. Your body, same. Cells, atoms, particles, concept. Okay? So that means the whole universe becomes concept now, and only one thing which remains, and that is what? Awareness. We are looking at the objects. Right? Now, you have to find out what is the relationship between all the objects are collapsed into what? Concepts. And what is the subject? Awareness. Because of which you objectify everything. Now, you have to find out what is the relationship between awareness and concept. Concept, can it exist without the presence of awareness? No. But does awareness need a concept to exist? So that means the whole universe is collapsed in as mithya. Mithya means it is not unreal. Please don't think it's unreal. This table is not unreal. It has a dependent reality. It just depends upon something else, which in turn depends upon something else, which in turn depends upon something else. The question is, what is the final thing upon which it depends? Awareness. Okay, so therefore, this awareness is not like any given object within time and space. It is what? It is something upon which the whole all the different objects of the universe depend. Okay? Now, all the objects exist within time and space framework. Okay? So now, you also have to determine the relationship between this awareness and time. Okay? So, way before Einstein came to, for a long time, humanity believed that time and space is absolute. The whole Newtonian physics was based on the fact that time and space is absolute, and within which what all the different objects come and they go. Okay. Einstein for the first time discovered the fact that time and space itself is relative. It's nothing constant about time and space. Okay. So therefore, way before this discovery, our rishis knew when they say Jagat is mithya, Jagat includes what? Time and space. So they understood the fact that time is not absolute, time itself has a dependent reality. So how did they arrive without this very involved mathematical calculations? How did they arrive at it? Just by looking at time. 1 hour. Generally how do we understand time? 1 hour. 1 hour itself is 60 seconds. 1 hour is just a name. When 60 seconds are over, you give it a name, 1 hour. Then 1 minute, 60 seconds. So that means when 60 seconds are over, you give it a name. All these units of time are what? Forms within forms within forms, right? 1 hour is collapsed into 60 minutes, 1 minute is collapsed into 60 seconds, 1 second is what? Microsecond, nanosecond, and it just goes on. Ultimately, it becomes a concept. Okay? And that also, that in order for the concept to be, there has to be this presence which is awareness. So therefore, this time collapses into awareness. What about space? Space, how do we understand space? Space is generally understood as what? Distance, right? In the sense that you are at this point in space and I am at this point in space. And what is the distance between us? You say, let's say 1 meter, less than 1 meter. But imagine if it was 1 meter, then that 1 meter is what?
3.5 feet.
3.5 feet, and then 1 foot is what? Inches, and then what? It is all just collapsible.
The concept.
Ultimately, it also becomes a concept.
So therefore, now we say that everything is only altered in space about everything else is opinion.
So that means the whole universe that we see
Mithya.
is mithya because it's actually nothing but atoms and particles which are combined with different permutations and combinations to sometimes become what? Mountains, sometimes become water. Then all these different human bodies, then bodies of animals, bodies of birds, bodies of reptiles. The whole thing is what? Space, time and atoms and particles. And the whole thing is concept, and it depends upon only one thing, which is awareness, which is given to you not as an object but as Atma, I.
So do trees also have awareness?
So trees, so that means awareness is something which is all pervading. Okay? Within that, what Namita is asking is something very important. If everything is awareness, why? I can kind of talk, but the rock or the table doesn't say, oh, I'm bored sitting in this room, I want to go to Gateway of India for a walk. What is the difference between, if awareness pervades everything, what is the difference between the table and me.
Inert object.
Excellent. So that means this
What
is
do you say?
inert and this is sentient, right? So now what is it? What makes something inert and what makes something sentient? The presence of Sukshma Sharira. If something has Sukshma Sharira, it is what we call alive, sentient. Something doesn't have Sukshma Sharira, we call it what? Inert. But the presence of awareness is always there, because even this, what resolves in concept. And this body, which is sentient and able to interact with the world, also collapses into concept. And awareness is truth of both. To make it simple, take your own dream as an example. The whole dream, the dream mountain, the dream water, dream characters, dream place, the whole thing is existing within what? Yeah, but within what? The dream world exists within what? Your little awareness. Your mind. Your awareness. Now within that dream, some things are sentient and some things are insentient. The rock in the dream is insentient, and the person who's dealing with that rock is sentient. But the whole thing is a play within what? One awareness, which is your awareness. Is your awareness ever getting involved in anything? Do the characters that come up in the dream, does it affect the awareness? They don't. But do they exist independent of your awareness?
Sorry?
They don't. There is a dream rock cannot exist without your awareness. But why that rock exists, right? It is not what independent of awareness, but does awareness actually become rock? Does it? No. Because if your awareness became a rock, what will happen when you wake up? You'll be stuck with that rock.
So you have to be there to see the rock. That's the
So
awareness.
that means, absolutely. So what is awareness pervades everything? Taking the dream example, your little awareness pervades the entire dream world. Every character in the dream cannot exist without your awareness. It has a dependent reality. Your awareness in the dream has what? Does it depend upon the rock? Does it depend upon the sun? Does it depend upon the character? It was there before, it is there while the dream is going on, and once the dream goes, your awareness is there. It doesn't depend upon any character in the dream. It has an independent existence. It pervades the entire dream, but it never becomes what? Any of the characters in the dream.
There is a detached quality to this awareness.
Absolutely. Detached in the sense that Satya Mithya means that it pervades, pervading everything, it is free from it. Like, in fact, every relationship where there is Satya Mithya, it is that relationship. There is, can you say that the wood is detached from the table? No. You can't really say detached. There is no real detachment. But pervading the wood, pervading the table is free from what? The characteristics of the table. The table enjoys characteristics. What are the characteristics? It has height, it has width, it has certain dimensions. Okay? But can you say that the wood takes on those dimensions intrinsically? No. Why? Because I can dismantle this table and I can make something totally different from this room. So every time there is Satya Mithya relationship, it's a very significant thing, right? So that means Mithya cannot exist without Satyam. Satyam is independent of Mithya, and pervading it, it transcends. Transcendence doesn't, generally when we use the word transcendence, what does it mean? Something is lifted up, physically lifted up. Here we are not talking about physically lifting up anything. We are saying that pervading everything, it is what free from the characteristic of everything that it pervades. It never takes on the attributes of what performs. Okay? So therefore, we use the word independent reality rather than, because detachment means you have to be attached, then you are detached. Here what are we saying? Detached means you have to go away from this given thing in time and space and you go to some other place in time and space. That is generally, if I am attached, if I am physically attached to something, if these two are attached, when I say detachment, what does it mean? They move away from each other in time and space. Is that what we are saying? If awareness was attached to one given object and it has to be detached, it has to move away within time and space. But what did we say? Awareness being the very truth of time and space. Can you find it physically away within time and space? It pervades time, it pervades space. But pervading time and space, it is free from it. Like you, the person who dreams the whole dream world. Your relationship with dream time, dream space, dream characters. The whole dream world comes from you, but you are free from everything. Every character in the dream, you don't want, is not inherently stuck to you. Nothing is stuck to you. Okay? So now, there is this difference which is what? Presence and absence of Sukshma Sharira, which makes something inert and something sentient. But everything is pervaded by awareness. Awareness pervades everything. Now this is reality. This is something which is not what it is, whether you know it or not, it is the fact. What is the whole attempt? To know it. To know it. To know it exactly as it is. Okay? Because we have lived for cycles of birth, cycles, anadikala, thinking I am what this limited individual. And what you are is the truth of time, space and every object. The magnitude of mistake that we make, it's huge. Okay? And because of this mistake, we have what our self-identity is what as good as the body and mind. And body and mind are highly limited. So all those limitations which belong to body and mind, I imputed onto what? This awareness, and I cannot but have low self-image. Why? Because what is the body's and the mind's capacity to control the universe? Very limited. So I always, for everything that I do, reminds me of my limitation. Because body is limited, mind is limited. Now therefore, if I continue with the mistake, my eye gets loaded with what? All limitations. Okay? With that limitation, I further say, oh, I can't control it, so therefore what? I must be useless, or somebody else is to be blamed. So your eye gets further loaded with first level mistake you make. After that, what? You keep on loading your eye with other things, right? Then you see some other form which you think is more beautiful, then there is jealousy. Then you act from that jealousy and you look down upon somebody, then again your eye keeps getting loaded with all kinds of things because you have started with what? At a wrong point. You haven't seen the nature of I as I, the real I. So that's why that is the ultimate thing that you have to know. All these values that I have been talking about, they help you this true nature of yourself. Okay. Now, knowing that nature of yourself is not possible. This is why Lord Krishna says, Jnana means you have to live these values. You can't go from jealousy to this limitlessness. You can't go there. You have to correct it, right? Make your whole understanding of this relative world accurate, and then you can go one step further. So therefore, it is alignment at all different levels. So this is where the whole connection is. Okay. That ultimately the whole thing is knowing your Atma, which is already that. Please understand, you are not producing limitlessness. Can you produce limitlessness? Something which is not limited, which is limited now, can you make it limitless? Can you? No. Why? Any
That's its nature.
sorry?
That is its nature.
Exactly. Whatever is the intrinsic nature, you can't change it. Okay? And every action is going to be limited. So limited action is going to produce what? Limited result. Limited result cannot, you add more value, limited result, limited result, limited result. Can you produce limitlessness? No. Okay? So any spirituality which makes you believe that right now you are limited and you have to do something to become limitless or free from limitation, they don't know what, they start with a wrong starting point. Vedanta begins by saying Atma, I am Atma, in the present tense, I am Atma is Brahman. It is already there. The whole thing is to remove your ignorance, your veil, and to see what is. Okay? So the whole pursuit becomes knowing something which already is there, not producing something. So this is why, just a little technical and then I'll move to Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. You have to know some of these things which are making this traditional teaching very different from what the normal spiritual courses that people give. It's very, very important to recognize one thing. Shastra makes a distinction between knowledge and action. How, if I were to ask you, what is the difference between knowledge and action? Do you have some idea?
Knowledge influences action.
Your knowledge can influence action, correct. But what is the fundamental difference between knowledge and action? What you are saying is right. Your knowledge influences your action. How much you know, it will influence your actions. But how are they two different?
Which is understanding.
Action is a physical act.
The action itself, Shastra divides in three acts. Kayika, Vachika and Manasa. Action can be of three types. Physical, verbal and mental. So that is action. The difference between action and knowledge is Vastu Tantra and action is Purusha Tantra. This you must know. This is so critical to putting what are you doing when you are listening to Vedanta. You don't know, people are confused as to what exactly is going on. When you listen to Vedanta Shastra, are you using your free will or are you trying to understand what is? So, first I will define. Vastu, when you say action is Purusha Tantra. Purusha Tantra means it is centered on your free will. Okay? So therefore, what does it mean free will? Free will means Kartum Shakyam, Akartum Shakyam, Anyathava Kartum Shakyam. If there is a bottle here, I have a choice. What is the choice that I have? I can lift it. I can lift it and what? Drink water from it. I may not lift it at all. Kartum shakyam, akartum shakyam, I may not lift it, or I can lift it and give it to Nandana. This choice I have. So that means action means it is subject to what Purusha Tantra means. It is centered on free will. Free will of a person. I can do it, I need not do it, or I can do it differently. Okay? Now, if I ask you, what is this? What is this? Bottle. Do you have a free will here? In knowing what it is? Can you say, oh, I don't like this plastic bottle, I want glass bottle? Does your free will have anything to do with what is here? It has got nothing to do with it. What is already is. What is knowledge? Vastu Tantra. Vastu Tantra means it's in keeping with what is. You're doing something or not doing is not going to what?
Change.
Make any difference to this object. Every knowledge is Vastu Tantra. It is in keeping with what is. Your free will has got nothing to do with it. If you want to understand that, then what choice do you have but to understand it as it is? Your wishful thinking plays no part in it. There is a beautiful story about Galileo. Okay? For a long time, humanity believed that the earth is flat. That was based on what? Your normal perception, because it seems like the earth is flat. He figured out that the earth is not flat, but it is a globe. But it as though went against people's immediate perception. So nobody was willing to believe him. Okay. How did he figure out that the earth is not flat, but it is round? It's a globe.
We like sunlight.
One day he was standing by the sea and he saw what? A boat traveling, and then the boat disappeared from the horizon. We would not even think about it, right? What did we do? That triggered inquiry. So how is it that if the earth is flat, I should not continue to see that boat, but it has disappeared? And then he figured out that actually the earth cannot be flat. And he figured out that the earth is a globe. Now when he discovered that, you think people just accepted it? No. There was so much opposition because the immediate perception is that of flatness. Then actually it was very interesting that they put him in jail. Because the church put him in jail, and they were torturing him, and at one point they told him, either you accept that the earth is flat or we are going to kill you. This is a real story. Galileo said that, of course, nobody wants to die. So he says, yeah, okay, I will write. I will write that the earth is flat. But what is? Can anybody change? If the earth is globe, my writing it, does it change the fact? Never changes the fact. It's nothing to do with what I want it to be or what I don't want it to be. It is, and this is how it is. Knowledge is in keeping with what is. It is not Purusha Tantram, it is Vastu Tantram. Okay, so So now, when I tell you Atma is limitless, is it Purusha Tantram or Vastu Tantram? Vastu Tantram. It is. It has got nothing to do with what you do or what you don't do. It is already that. If it already is, what do you need to do? You need to lift your veil and see it as it is. Okay? Now, what is action? What is the role of action in this whole operation?
Lift the veil.
In order to lift the veil, you have to make some preparation. That is all Purusha Tantra. You have to make an effort to come here. That is Purusha Tantra. Because you have a choice, whether you are here or you are somewhere else, or what, whether you join the class, whether you don't join the class. This is all what? Purusha Tantra. Having listened to it, to reflect on it, right? And to cultivate all the values so that your mind becomes ready for this knowledge. Is this Purusha Tantra or Vastu Tantra? Purusha Tantra.
The choice is ours.
Because that choice is yours. Right? So that means within the pursuit there is something which is Purusha Tantra. But the final reality is what? Vastu Tantra. Okay? Any step that you make towards your personal growth by developing what? Amanitvam, Adantitvam, Ahimsa, Kshanti, Arjavam, all these values, these are all Purusha Tantra. You have to develop, you have to cultivate. Nobody is born with full vision of these qualities. But ultimately what you need to know is what? Vastu Tantra. It is already accomplished fact about awareness being limitless.
Just one question. You mentioned something body and karmic body that you come with.
Yeah, that is.
So a karmic body would not have some of these attributes of what you mentioned just
Yeah, so Karana Sharira has attributes.
of your previous
Yeah, absolutely.
Amanitvam or something. Must have a little bit different from something else.
See, that's a very good question. Let's say, now there is a question that Arjuna asks in one chapter of the Gita, when he asks that imagine that this life, I have started with this pursuit of Vedanta, but I haven't totally prepared myself to know this reality and have a total clarity in the vision. So I leave the world without total clarity. What will happen?
Or by restore it.
Exactly. So all those things get restored in your Karana Sharira. So therefore, next time you come with an inclination. You come with a certain preparedness. So that means it can be either preparedness in terms of your maturity, it can be preparedness in terms of your cognitive capacity, in your saintliness. I mean, it can be, or your skills. It can come in or a kind of a conducive background, family background, which will push you towards this. So that means nothing is lost. Everything that once, that's why they say in a journey of a jiva. Jiva is this individual who takes oneself to be body, mind, sense complex. Okay? Now, lifetimes go thinking that I am only this much. Lifetimes. In one lifetime, if you come to this knowledge, where you begin to question this reality and begin to prepare yourself for knowing this reality by coming into alignment with what is at all these different levels, you have done what? A major shift. It's a major shift. It's a very fundamental major shift. From that shift, there is no going back. You only move forward. Okay? Our teacher, and that's why people are at different level. For somebody who comes to you, it could be what? The first lifetime. For somebody else who comes to you, it could be what? Fifth lifetime. They will exhibit what? different levels of maturity and capacity to learn. Now, our teacher is sometimes people used to say, Swamiji, you are so intelligent and all these people who are sitting in your class, some of them are so useless. So why are you wasting your time with them? He says, if you increase that whole thing, after Anadi Kala, if somebody is brought to me and is sitting in front of me, I don't give that person a chance to start.
What do you mean Anadi Kala?
Sorry, Anadi Kala means from time immemorial. Because this, as I told you, that according to the vision of Veda, this whole manifestation of Jagat is what? Manifestation, unmanifestation, manifestation, unmanifestation. So that means it's cyclical in nature and it is what? Without any beginning.
Actually, Anadi Kala's true meaning is Anadi since time immemorial.
Immemorial means, that's why it's cyclical.
That's Parsi.
Manifest, not
Okay, this whole time, space and object universe comes into manifestation and it goes into unmanifest.
See
It's
that
called
dream.
pralaya. So it's like, your dream world, you manifest the dream world and then you wake up, it becomes unmanifest. Then again, at night when you dream, you come and bring into manifestation the dream world. So this is the case with reference to this
Is
Jagat.
that example
Becomes
C?
manifest
Sorry.
and unmanifest. So therefore,
scientifically, if we
so they have been talking about, they haven't yet totally, but they've been talking about cyclical nature of the universe. They've been talking about it. So that means, what does it mean? That this particular Big Bang theory that we have, it is that the time they talk about what some billions of years ago, this Big Bang. So what they say, according to Vedanta, this is with reference to this cycle of creation. So there have been multiple cycles of creation, from manifesting, manifesting. That's why there is no linear time for us.
You give the example of seed and tree.
Seed and
Maybe
tree.
we just
See,
go-
the fact that, okay, now I have to talk about Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, I just I'm talking, but it's important that you listen to Vedanta because this part of Vedanta is very important to understand. Okay? So now, this cyclical nature of time, what does it mean? That Anadi Kala means that you can't put beginning. Okay? But if you had linear time, what would happen? You can arrive at what? The first something,
And should be continuous then also, right?
right? But if you have cyclical nature of time, then you can't arrive at the beginning of anything. So that means if I ask, what is the beginning, whether the seed came first or the tree came first? The egg came first or chicken? Father came first or the son? You have no. So that means the whole thing is what? Cyclical in nature. You can't arrive at linear beginning. If the time was moving linearly, you should be able to arrive at the linear beginning. But for nothing you arrive at linear beginning. Okay? So therefore, this whole thing about our cyclical nature of creation, what takes you on, it became manifest and it is unmanifest. Manifest, unmanifest. From one reality, which is what? Not subject to time, space and objects. From which time, space and objects manifest and they go into unmanifestation. And that reality is I. It's not some third reality. It's given to you as not an object but a subject, self-evident. Chit, Chit Swarup. So therefore, this is the reality which is to be known. Anything that you have done in any lifetime, when you start this process, then what you are going to be taken for. So that's why he used to say, my teacher used to say, if that person, I didn't go to that person landed up in front of me. If I reject the person, what will happen? This cycles, the person will what? Continue for cycles of creation without what? having an opportunity to get out. I have to start. If that person wants, I have to give. Then what? If not this lifetime, what lifetimes the journey will be over. Till the time that the person prepares oneself, which is what Purusha Tantra, and understands this reality, which is what Vastu Tantra is there. It's totally, my understanding is totally aligned to what is. Then this whole pursuit is over. Until then, it continues. Okay? So therefore, this is a very significant, whether you realize or not, you think that you're just coming to Vedanta class. It's in the life of a jiva, it is just one of the most significant events. It is what we call coming home to reality. So therefore, this is the Vastu. Now, the preparedness is so important. So the framework that we had earlier was a different, the values framework. Now, the preparedness, which is Purusha Tantra, is given with another framework. And the framework is Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Because if I tell you need to prepare yourself, and if I don't tell you how to prepare yourself, then what? You don't know, that you are lost. Okay? So therefore, this particular framework is helpful for us to what? Evolve and become ready for this knowledge. So the next verse, which is chapter 14, verse 5, it says, Sattva Rajastamahiti Gunam Prakriti Sambhava Nibaddhanti Mahabhavo Dehi Dehi Namavyaya. So that means each one of us, if we look at the differences, okay, the differences, your mind and my mind, can, if on one hand I can, how do we see the differences? Your disposition and my disposition. Either we can say you like math, I like physics or whatever, or we can have a framework which is what? Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. What is Sattva?
Sattvic.
Yeah, Sattvic. Who according to you is a Sattvic person? Now what is a Sattvic disposition? Let's forget about a person.
Same.
What is a Sattvic disposition?
Less desires.
No.
Not grow, I mean, subtle. Not gross desires, subtle desires.
So gross and subtle and all, it's all very vague, right? Because what is a subtle desire and what is a gross desire and what is subtle? Sattvic means something different.
The person
Whose
performs
actions are-
actions without any desire for the food. Just perform actions when he has to.
Whose actions are more wholesome, not just from his own selfish needs.
Okay, so that means this is a little bit, the person looks beyond, this is a good definition. I mean, but what I want to, that the person looks, the general tendency is what? Everything is for self-gratification. Okay. Now when I look a little bit beyond that, and if I begin to think about what well-being of others, then that well-being of others can be what? Stretched a little bit to my family members, then it can be stretched a little bit more to encompass friends, then a little bit more to what? Society. People who are unknown to me, I also care about them, right? So that means this is what we call you're becoming more and more sattvic. Wonderful, right? What does it mean? What have you? Is it having less desires? In fact, you are converting the nature of your desire. The normal desire is what? Self-preservation. Now the desire becomes what? It's not selfless. It encompasses, it's an enlightened desire because what you include
Others.
in your desires. Is changing the quality of desires. It's not desirelessness. Right? So that means there is an expansion. This is what we call sattvic disposition. How else does sattvic disposition manifest?
You see the values which are the opposite of the tamasic values.
So by living all these values that I talked about, right, that makes you what? More sattvic person. Living those values and understanding the value of those values. How it makes me grow as a person and makes me what? Avoid conflicts, low self-esteem, guilt feeling, right? So living the value of values, understanding the value of values and living the values makes you what? Sattvic person. The other way that sattva can manifest in many different ways, right? It can also manifest as clarity of thinking, the decision-making capacity. Okay? Generally, our decision-making is all clouded. We are unable to distinguish between what is within our sphere of influence and what is not within our sphere of influence. Okay? Within what is our sphere of influence, right? What are the major factors and what are the minor factors? What is the information which is not directly relevant to this, but I keep on bringing it? So that means our whole decision making is all clouded with lots of information but not well processed.
So a sattvic mind.
So a sattvic mind is what?
Clear.
Clarity. Very important. Okay? The clarity of, that when you have to engage, you engage. When something is not within your capacity, you withdraw. All that is something which is so important to sattvic living. Okay?
Like a tortoise,
Right,
how you say like a tortoise.
right interventions. Right interventions are understanding. Like a doctor, when they want to intervene with your body, how much they need to first know about how the body works. Then only they can intelligently intervene. They just can't do whatever they feel like doing. So much knowledge is required, and what to do and what not to do, and what time. All that. Okay? So that clarity is also manifestation of sattvic. So now, in your sattvic disposition, you can't include only what those the people who are what they fall in the line of what we call people who are studying Gita. If you add this, who else you will add to your category of sattvic disposition? All the thinkers. All Newton becomes sattvic because he spent his whole life thinking about things which are realities, and how much of your, how refined you have to be. We all saw, everybody saw for ages apples falling. For him to arrive at gravity means it's an amazing mind. So this, what I want you to do is not divide the world into materialistic and spiritual. And you think that sattvic is only person who comes to Gita. Not true. These minds, Einstein, highly sattvic with reference to what? A certain, dedicating your life to understanding the universe, the way it works. And those discoveries fundamentally change what? The body of knowledge with which we live our lives. Major contributions. Major contributions. Okay, that is a sattvic disposition. A CEO who is not only thinking about what just one's profit, maximizing profit, and thinking about what, that it's an entity and it plays a very big role in the society, in the way that it treats its employees, its other stakeholders, the relationship it has with the society, and being a responsible entity. Sattvic, you're doing business and you are making money, but what your vision is what?
All
Give employment to
All encompassing. Sattvic. An artist, whether it's dance, music, painter, brilliant works of what? Creation. All sattvic. Please come out of this narrow definition of sattvic. This cliche of this person who's only studying Gita and doing prayers is a sattvic. Hey, sattvic is a wide range because the mind is multifaceted. Anybody who's engaging in a world with what? And applying oneself and achieving excellence is a sattvic man.
But a dancer could just be dancing to make money also.
So, but the time and hours spent, it's a dedicated life. How much in order to, they have to be careful about what they eat, they have to be careful about when they sleep, they have to be careful about, even within that dance, there are different categories, sattva, rajas and tamas. It's a very good question.
Discipline.
So that means in order to be good, in fact it's interesting, I have this kids class and I was asking them, what do you need to be successful? Okay. And they said, oh, we have to work hard, and then they said, oh yeah, we need to actually spend time knowing things, and then they added, oh, we have to eat well, we have to sleep properly. So they added everything into being successful. They know it. So I asked it, now how much of it you do and how much of it you don't do. Then they are very candid. They said, yeah, this I do, but this I don't do. This I do sometimes. That whole vision of success, I don't have to tell them anything. It's all encompassing. At this age, 8 years old, they know. They connect everything. Okay. So therefore, any excellence, to become a famous dancer, it takes a lot of energy. There can be people who are like completely, but the music, classical Indian music, people spend what? Lifetimes. A whole lifetime dedicated to music. So many hours there to spend in riyas. Manifestation of, one of the manifestation of sattva. Sattva means that applying yourself totally and fully, engaging fully. The different manifestation, either it can show as the value, maturity, or generosity, or all encompassing, or a business leader can be sattvic, a scientist is sattvic. It's not like only the spiritual person is sattvic.
But if the ultimate goal is for good, no?
Excellent. If the ultimate, now, the nuance that Namrata is talking about is an extremely important nuance. Because imagine, scientist oneself can be either, what Gita is saying is sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. Scientist is a sattvic disposition because it requires a lot of time and effort and clarity to engage in something which is what? Pure science. Okay? But within that, your intentions also will decide whether you are sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. If the scientist is just trying to understand how the world works and has a full dedication to it, that is what a sattvic. But within that, if somebody comes, a lot of scientists are approached by all these pharmaceutical companies. And they said, you show that this given thing is helpful for, let's say, weight reduction. What do these pharmaceutical companies want to do?
Self-interest.
They want to sell this medicine, but they need an approval from the scientist. And if he sells, if they offer billions of dollars, and through some correlation, which is a vague correlation, he makes that statement, what that same scientist will be what? Either tamasic
Or
or
rajasic.
rajasic. Rajasic if that given molecule
It's not good also.
is not totally correlated but just exaggerating a little and making a statement, maybe rajasic, because he is interested
Or it
in
would
this.
harm the patient in the
If
long
it
run.
harms, it becomes tamasic.
Tamasic.
The whole world is nuanced. That very profession is sattvic because it requires a lot more dedication, but within that there are three different possibilities: sattvic, rajasic and tamasic. Okay, so therefore this is what is rajasic? Intrinsically, what is rajasic? Anything driven by self-interest. Okay. Self-interest means self-interest can come as what? It can show up as
Even selfishness, no?
it can either show up as selfishness or it can show up as what? Drive, ambition. It's not just negative, please understand, right? That rajasic to achieve things in this world. So all these very big business people, that struggle and
As long
strive,
as you're
working
not-
hard. So they actually start with predominantly rajasic, and once they achieve a certain level, they may turn into
Sattvic.
sattvic. They may, or they may not.
Not.
They may not.
Or they may even turn
Or they may turn into tamasic if they actually start exploiting their employees and all that. Absolutely. But predominantly what? That rajasic tendency. They are not like sitting and thinking. What are they doing? Engaging, action.
Tamasic is also lazy, right?
So we are doing rajasic first. So rajasic is what? Drive. It can also manifest as drive, not only self-interest. So you need to expand what you mean by rajasic. Otherwise we have very narrow definition of what is rajasic. Drive, ambition, enthusiasm. Okay? All this is also rajasic. So therefore don't categorize it as something bad. There is nothing bad. But if it becomes self-centered, then that is the distortion. That is rajasic. And finally, so also all these political leaders, what? Predominantly rajasic, right? And engaging in the world, motivating people, doing things, right? So that is what we call rajasic disposition. And the third is tamas. What is tamas?
Lazy.
Laziness,
negative.
confusion, negativity. Negativity means that there is a confusion in values, you don't see clearly and you only see the downside rather than actually assessing the situation accurately. These are all tamasic. That means your mind is capable of thinking, but you are not using that faculty and you are staying within what certain preconceived notions which are not accurate. Laziness of applying that. Lazy. Tamasic can also come as what? Not following universal values. It can also,
For
right?
shortcuts?
shortcuts, all this is tamasic.
Terrorists,
So,
they are so dedicated.
sorry,
Terrorists,
terrorists, exactly.
so dedicated.
They are so dedicated but to a wrong cause. Tamasic. Okay, so therefore, this sattva, rajas, and tamas. And tamas also means inactivity. So inactivity at times is not categorically bad also, because all of us need to sleep for a while. All of us need a break, right? So therefore, tamas, what Shastra says is something which is very important. Every human being has all three qualities: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Nobody is only sattva, nobody is only rajas, and nobody is only tamas. All three we have. What is the growth?
Use them wisely.
Use them wisely and try to be predominantly sattvic. Predominantly. You can't eliminate the other two, and you need not eliminate the other two. You need certain amount of drive. Even if you want to have, right, as I said, you want to expand to be a sattvic person, you need to follow it up with actions. You can't just think, oh yeah, let me just think about well-being of others and not do anything. You need rajas. Okay. And there is always a time that you need to repose and you just need to take it easy. Tamas is also, you can't totally avoid it, and it need not be avoided. But you make sure that you are predominantly a sattvic person and the other two are channeled properly.
Why can action not be sattvic? Why do you need rajasic to make that happen?
See, for example, sattvic disposition is that there is a sense of expansion, right? Sense of expansion means I'm not only thinking about myself, but I'm thinking about others. But it cannot stay only at thought level, it has to be followed up by action.
No, but action can also be sattvic.
So therefore, this rajasic thing that we have as, which is what the action itself, disposition is sattvic, but you need that drive, you need to channel that ambition, enthusiasm to achieve those goals.
No, but I'm asking
So-
why that action or that energy cannot be sattvic, and why is it termed as rajasic?
No, that thinking capacity is termed as sattvic. The action is, that's why I'm saying that rajasic is, please don't think of it as bad.
No, I'm not saying bad
Yeah,
or good. I'm
so
saying
therefore-
why is it
So
not sattvic?
rajasic is what we call enthusiasm, that is called, the action can become sattvic when the intention is proper, right? But the impelling to act is basically put in the category of rajasic. There is one thing which is a faculty of knowing, the other one is faculty of acting, and the third is removing that faculty, that withdrawal.
It's not only a thought. Sattvic is a habit or a practice. So therefore I'm asking, why can action not be termed as sattvic?
You can,
It can, if your action is with compassion.
so that means, you're right, what you are saying is right, that the action itself can be a sattvic action, but the rajasic tendency, when we are talking about rajasic tendency, that rajasic tendency is also described as
Being a doer.
that thing which is going to give us the drive to do things. That ambition can lead to what? Engagement.
Giving a donation to a noble cause would be a sattvic action.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but giving it because you want your name there.
No, noble cause.
Absolutely.
I said noble cause.
So therefore, now we are just talking about dispositions, then we will talk about actions, right? So therefore, I will talk about it. Raman, this is a very good thing that you are talking about. The disposition is what, if you are just acting without taking time to figure out things clearly, then it becomes what? Either tamasic or rajasic. But if you have spent enough time to get clarity and then act, then what? rajasic tendency is what is impelling you to act, but how you use it can make it sattvic. Absolutely.
But I don't like the question. It's just amazing, this topic. It's just come the right term because I'm in a major decision and action process after my mother. And this is,
Which is so important, right? So how you do it, with what intention, with what clarity, whose interest are you keeping in mind, it will all make an action into either a sattvic or a rajasic or tamasic. Right? So now, these are the three dispositions, but as I told you, nobody can avoid any of the three qualities, dispositions. So now, your actions have to be mostly what, in order to have you must have predominantly sattvic disposition in order to have mostly sattvic actions. It's not possible. Without the disposition, action follows disposition. You can't act responsibly if you're not thinking properly. So that means this is the alignment that we are talking about. First is your disposition and then how it manifests as action. Because action follows disposition. Okay. So therefore, this whole thing of three sattva, rajas and tamas, there is an ingenious method with which Bhagavad Gita makes you see the nuances of these sattva, rajas and tamas and how they combine. Okay. Generally, we have this bipolar thinking. Danam is charity. We think it is good. Okay. Now, the nuance that Bhagavad Gita adds is the danam itself can be what? Sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. Danam, the act of giving, itself can be sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. Right? So all this we will talk in the next class. Okay? Then your Shraddha. Shraddha itself can be sattvic, rajasic or tamasic. Tapas. Tapas means,
How would Shraddha be?
so I will explain on that in the next
Just in
class.
one line, please.
So Shraddha, as she says, if your Shraddha is in the right place. Okay. So for example, if there is Ishvara which pervades everything, and you have Shraddha in that pervasiveness of Ishvara, even without totally understanding it is sattvic. But if you have Shraddha in some, what your idea of Ishvara is, which is one guy sitting out there, it doesn't correspond to reality. So you have Shraddha, but it's a very limited understanding of what you have commitment to. It is rajasic. But because of that Shraddha, if you begin to tell others sinners and trying to condemn them, begin to condemn them, then it becomes tamasic. The very Shraddha becomes threefold. As she says that the people are very committed to cause, but it is what for destruction of others, it becomes what? Tamasic Shraddha. Okay? So tapas. Tapas is all the self-discipline. Again, sattva, rajas, and tapas. Very nuanced analysis. Okay? So we will see all of that next time. So that we become truly sattvic and not just for